make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
Dobbs balled out, and he had like a couple days to learn the playbook.
Yeah,
and he didn't even know his teammates' names. I think he's knocking on the door to being a starting quarterback in this league. All right, thanks for tuning back into the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker.
And Zaczynski.
And the MLB season has concluded. The Texas Rangers are the World Series champions of the 2023 season. And initial thoughts, it was a 5-game series, gentlemen's sweep. I personally expected more of a fight out of the Diamondbacks, but they didn't show any, really.
Yeah, really disappointed because the last time we were talking about this series, we were saying that, you know, it was going to be a great series, very competitive, and it really took a complete 180. The Diamondbacks did not put up any fight, really, on the road. At home. And the Rangers are the road warriors of this season. What was it, 11?
11-0.
11-0 on the road this playoffs. I've never seen road dominance quite like that in any playoffs in terms of like multi-game series, because in the NFL, you know, you get one shot, and there are definitely wild card teams that, you know, win on the road all throughout to get to the Super Bowl. Case in point, the New York Giants, 2011. I'm sure there's a couple others that I'm forgetting. In terms of like NBA, NHL, MLB, I've never seen a road team like that in the playoffs because they didn't have one hiccup on the road, which is insane. And they played in multiple tough environments.
I mean, if we're going to talk NFL, there's two that come to my mind. So you talk about the 2011 Giants. The 2007 Giants, basically, I think they won every single game on the road that year. 2010 Packers played every playoff game on the road. But, I mean, what the Rangers did in baseball terms, I don't remember teams really doing this.
Yeah. Wait, who was the quarterback for the Packers team that year?
Okay. We'll wait to talk about football in a bit. All right. All right. But my biggest takeaway was how much fun watching Game 5 was. And I know it's going to get lost because the series did not last that long, and not a lot of people watched because there's two small market teams. But Game 5, the pitching between Nathan Eovaldi and Zach Gallen was unbelievable because it was so different. Gallen had 6 no-hit innings and then blew it in the 7th, and then the Rangers started to pick it up and ran away with the game. But the way Nathan Eovaldi pitched out of trouble in that game was just unbelievable. Because if you win that game, then you're only down 3-2, and the series totally shifts. So for the fact that Eovaldi was facing so many base runners, like he had the bases loaded, I think, in the 4th inning, runners at second and third in the 3rd, and just to pitch out of it, he just showed why he's such a good lockdown pitcher. And this was the best game that he's pitched, in my opinion, in the playoffs since the 2018 World Series game that went into like the 17th inning, and he pitched 6 innings, allowed 1 run, which ended up being the losing run. But still, he is just one of those guys that you put him in crunch time in the playoffs, he's going to excel. And it was so much fun watching him pitch.
Just looking back, it's hard to believe that the Diamondbacks won the National League Conference because if you look back, like they were really hot like up until that point, but like there were teams like the Phillies that like were clearly head to toe better than them, and they just choked.
Yeah, right. And there's 3 really because honestly, you could argue the Dodgers were better, but the Dodgers had more obvious holes than the Braves and the Phillies, which those were obviously the top 3 teams in the NL. Yeah. And I'm very surprised none of them could get it done against the Diamondbacks team that looked feeble against Texas.
Yeah.
They did look feeble, but I thought that they still – I mean, there were certain games that there was a blowout. But like I said, Game 5, it was pretty much a dogfight until the 7th inning.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, that people aren't going to talk about because of the Rangers' record and the fact they fell apart, they were the best team in the AL for the majority of the year. I know by August they started slipping. In September they totally blew it to both Houston, Tampa, and Baltimore also passed them as well. But when you look at how much power this offense had, I mean, in the first 2 months of the season, they had multiple games of scoring 10 runs. I think it was they had 15 or 16 games with 10-plus runs in the first 2 months. So they had the offensive power to do it. They just needed to turn it up. In the postseason, they finally came through. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that's not going to be talked about because, like I said, people didn't watch this series as much for a lot of different factors. The Rangers' record wasn't as good as people thought it was going to be. The Diamondbacks were the last wild card team. So I get it, but I think that the Rangers did have one of the best teams going into the playoffs. It just didn't feel like it because, like I said, they slid going in.
We can move into the NFL right now. I do want to open with a question. Who do you guys think should get more of the blame for their team's loss, Dak Prescott or Zach Wilson this week?
Zach Wilson for sure. I mean, Dak Prescott, I felt like was doing a lot for the Cowboys and putting them in opportunities. And yes, he came up short on a couple real chances in his game, but I feel like overall, in terms of the whole game, 4 quarters, Dak Prescott did a lot more than what Zach Wilson did. And yeah, the defense wasn't great against the Chargers, but I felt like it was good enough because the special teams gave up the 1 touchdown. So they really let up like 20 points, which isn't terrible. It's like that should be good enough on a semi-bad day for your offense to win you a game. And I mean, it feels like the only game Zach Wilson can win in the NFL is when it's against the Giants or against a team with terrible weather. And that's not going to get you nowhere. And this is what we saw with this team when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. We said he'll probably play a couple good games, win a couple, but not put the Jets in a position to make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I don't want to rag on him too much because he was dotting up his receivers, but there were multiple drops. Like, the line was terrible, like it was in week 1 that caused Rodgers to get the injury. Mm-hmm. I feel like he isn't as bad as, like, the stat sheet is showing because although he didn't throw a touchdown, like, he wasn't getting much out of the offense.
And another good thing is he didn't throw an interception, but the 3 fumbles, like, at a time, when you fumble it the first time, I feel like you need to be more aware and have better ball security. That's, so I feel like at least a couple of those sacks are on him and a couple of those fumbles are on him.
Yeah, I also do want to say for the Eagles-Cowboys game, I predicted the game score the night before.
That's pretty cool,
Yeah. Dude, I was sweating. Like, I thought Dallas was going to, add some points to the board on that last drive.
Yeah, I know. That would have been the worst loss in Eagles history if that happened. I mean, it would jump the Super Bowls that they've lost. Because, dude, they came really close to losing that game. But the defense did not play well for Philadelphia. And
it hasn't been.
There are obvious holes. Like, when you're playing Sidney Brown in the slot on CeeDee Lamb, there's holes on your defense right now. The good thing is they're going to get Roby back after the bye week, which is a plus because at least you have a guy that's actually playing slot corner. Like Sidney Brown as a safety, playing slot corner as a rookie against CeeDee Lamb. Like, of course that's going to happen. And, they were matching him up with Eli Ricks. It's like, I'm not sure why Darius Slay wasn't on him more because when Dallas got into the red zone, CeeDee Lamb was doing nothing. And Darius Slay was I'm not going to say locking him up, but he was covering him really well. And to a point where Dak wasn't looking his way in the red zone. And in the red zone, Dak really only got the first one or the first 2 to the one to Ferguson and then the one to Turpin. And then in the fourth quarter, he gets the one to, I can't remember, Tolbert. But those were really the only opportunities that they capitalized on in the red zone in a lot of opportunities. They had a ton of chances, and they just could not get it done. And especially on that last drive when, the Eagles committed those penalties that were moving them up, Dak takes the sack. They have the false start, Dak takes the sack. And it's like you cannot take a sack there, and then they don't spike the ball.
Mm-hmm. And that's all Mike McCarthy.
And honestly, I've seen a lot of people saying that they're more impressed with Dallas after the win. I just don't know how you can say that. And the Eagles, the only problem I think is their run game right now. Their run game is not what it was, and it needs to get better because those 2 3-and-outs in the fourth quarter were not good. But honestly, I think those are the only 2 down plays you can talk about with the offense. They were dominating the game, and if they could have just controlled the clock better in the fourth quarter, that would have been a less stressful win.
Yeah, I think it does help that Hurts is playing amazing the last 3 weeks. And
like an MVP.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I know you guys attacked me at the beginning of the season, but I said DeAndre Swift is a tier below a lot of the good running backs, and I got heavily
I don't think
criticized.
it's Swift. It's really the O-line right now. The O-line is getting no push, I feel like, on the run blocking.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're still one of the best O-lines in football.
I don't think they're playing like it right now.
They also have a lot of injuries too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're dealing with injuries.
I mean, and that's the thing that I think is getting passed on when we're talking about the Eagles. Last year, one of the reasons that they were so dominant is because everyone stayed healthy.
Yeah.
And so they're still trying to figure out the slot corner, in my opinion. You had Tyler Steen start his first game of his career, and I thought that he actually did a pretty decent job, all things considered. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it that way, you've got to feel pretty happy that they're 8-1.
Yeah, right.
Especially when you look at how much some of these other teams, like the Niners now are 5-3, and I feel like people aren't freaking out nearly as much. And maybe it's because the Eagles have higher expectations, which fairly they should. You made the Super Bowl last year. That's the goal now.
Right. Yeah.
And people are going to, if they don't get to that point again, people are going to see the season as a failure. Whether or not it should be, that's just how it's going to be judged.
Yeah.
That's why the Chiefs have it's the same expectation for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So people are going to scrutinize you more, which I get, but at the same point, you have to take all these other things into consideration too. And I just feel like that's not necessarily being done.
Yeah, and we said it about the 49ers last week that the bye week was coming at a good time. It's the same thing for the Eagles because although they lost Goddard, which is pretty key, they're getting Juergens back and they're getting Roby back, like I mentioned earlier. So getting healthier at key positions that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this stretch, the fact that they're 8-1 going into this stretch after the bye, I don't think you could ask for any more.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, would have been happy to have the Jets game back.
Yeah.
And have be 9-0. But if you're 8-1 at this point, going through some of those tough games that you've been through, I'm really not complaining about where they're at.
Agreed.
Yeah, me neither. I think it's only going to be up from here because I think they got through one of their toughest stretches because especially the Bills aren't looking like they should.
No, but it's still going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we can look at the records and say it's fine, but the schedule and the way the games have gone this year, it's been weird.
Yeah.
And no game anymore feels like an automatic victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that was one of the issues with the Jets game is that going in was a little bit of not necessarily overconfidence, but just the thought that we've never lost to the Jets before. You've got to feel like you have that game in hand. And for a while, I think they did have the game in hand.
Yeah.
I think that was sort of part of the issue is that when they slipped up, it just sort of came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they've looked, I mean, there's been issues here and there playing games since then, but I haven't felt like that they've had that issue where the offense just went stagnant in the second half and they just fell apart. Like that hasn't happened that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do want to move into the Bills-Bengals game next. So the Bills are very close to being third place in the AFC East.
I think they are. Or am I wrong?
Well, not anymore because the Jets lost.
Okay.
But, yeah. But I don't really know if this is like more of the. Actually, I think this is more of the Bengals just like coming into their own. But I think it's an unlucky stretch for the Bills because like they haven't been catching a lot of breaks recently.
Yeah, no. And their offense has really been putting this team down, in my opinion, because when the defense gives up 348 yards to Joe Burrow and they're only able to put up 24 points, I think that your defense is doing a pretty good job and they're giving your offense chances. And I mean, the Bills are just squandering opportunities right now. And, like, they just it was all a little too late at the end there when they got that 2-point conversion to Diggs. And although they were close, it was just too little too late there. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I would be very worried as a Bills fan right now. I feel like you have to be. Like, 4 losses this late or this early into the season. It's just not where they've been the last couple of years and not up to their standard. And this was a year that they were supposed to push themselves over the top. Like,
yeah, they're on pace for like 9-8, like 10-7. It's not good.
No. And it's like football is not baseball where it's like just about making the playoffs. Like you wanted home field.
Yeah.
And
especially there.
Yeah, right. And like especially at a time right now where the Chiefs aren't really looking at their top. Like it kind of seems like they're I'm not saying like a huge slip, but like they're kind of coming into a road where they might have 1 or 2 games that they slip up on. And it's like, if you're 14-3, which is very possible in the AFC, even though it's tough, it's very possible you have a chance to get that one, and Kansas City has to come to you. But you're not getting it. Mm-hmm. You're not getting the one. You have to focus on winning your division because you have a chance at that, but you're not getting the one. You can forget about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I have the Bills. They haven't looked good since they beat Miami 48-20 in week 4. Yeah. And we're in week 10 now, and their schedule has been pretty weak in a couple of those games, and they still just haven't looked good. Yep. So, yeah, they definitely need to get it together and quickly.
It's about squandering opportunities for them. That's really the key to this season for them right now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I do want to move in like quickly to the Rams just because they got Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Okay. Ripien looked terrible the last 2 games that he played in.
Yeah.
And terrible to the point where you can't even get Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua involved in the offense, which is really bad. So, it was about time someone else took over. What are your expectations for Wentz, though?
I'm not going to set them too high because I don't really want to do that to them. They have the bye coming up this week, I'm pretty sure. So that's a good thing for them because then you can start Carson Wentz week 11. He gets 2 weeks of practice to really learn the offense. But I'm not setting my expectations too high for him. I think that would be unfair.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't played in a little while. But I would like to see him maybe in week 17 putting up like giving us hope a little bit.
Yeah.
Like a rebirth.
Kind of surprised they didn't roll with Stetson Bennett.
Nah, I'm not surprised.
A little bit.
Nah, I would rather have Carson Wentz than Stetson.
No. Like I'm saying, like I don't know why they went Ripien before Stetson.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Stetson Bennett, he's still not with the team.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Wait, why?
So,
like personal matter, right?
Yeah, they haven't officially said, but he hasn't been with the team since like August.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, what is interesting to me is that they didn't even seem to consider it. And maybe this is just like a redshirt year for Bennett because I think he did have a lot of issues when he was at Georgia. I mean, he played about as well as you could for a quarterback with his lack of what you consider a top prospect. But he just was a consistent winner. And you want a guy like that in the league. But he did seem to have some other issues, partying and whatnot. So I'm glad that he's taking the time away to get better. And I think there's other quarterbacks that were in his position that didn't do that, and they fell apart. So maybe there's hope for his career. Going back to Wentz, though, I'm with Slay. I'm not having like a ton of expectations. I thought Wentz did fine when he was with Washington, but the team just wasn't very good, honestly. And Wentz isn't, to me, the type of guy that will play. He's not going to lift your team up. And I think I've said this before. He's the type of guy that will win you games on a team that could win with a lot of other quarterbacks. And if the team's bad, he's going to fall with the team.
Yeah, I just think it will be easier because he has like 2 top receivers, but the line is shaky.
And that's what I'm saying is that I think that he'll put up great stats. I'm thinking this is going to be the 2021 Wentz that we saw with Indianapolis, where he'll put up really good stats, but the team will still struggle a bit, and I'm not expecting for a lot of wins.
And he'll squander opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, here's the thing. The Rams are 3-6 right now. Even if Wentz could elevate them to like a wild card position, which with the way their schedule's coming up, it's going to be tough to do.
Yeah.
But even if you can get them to like 8 and 9, I think that would be better than what most people were expecting for the Rams this year.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We can move into the Vikings game. The only really talking point here is like Dobbs balled out and he had like a couple days to learn the playbook.
Yeah.
And he didn't even know his teammates' names.
Yeah.
I think he's knocking on the door to being a starting quarterback in this league.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually impressed with what I've seen. He wasn't necessarily good in Arizona, but he looked pretty good against the Falcons. And I'm interested to see moving forward what he looks like because, again, I want to see if it's sustainable because he looked good against the Cowboys and then not fell off a cliff necessarily, but his play digressed.
Yeah. And
so I need to see him put it together for a couple weeks or he'll probably be just a journeyman
Yeah. I think he has the opportunity to define his career right now, though.
Agreed.
Yeah. To me, he reminds me a lot of, like, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's what I was going to say that, too.
Yeah, you put him in, like, he's a guy that I would want as a backup. First of all, he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a dude that was I believe, engineer.
Yeah,
like, aerospace. Yeah, engineer. So, like, this dude is one of the smartest guys that's ever played in the league. So when you get a guy like that, and you also just get his mentality of, I'm going to go out and play the best that I can. And he did play pretty well, all things considered. Like you guys said, he only had 2 days to learn the playbook. So to me, that's a guy that I would want as a backup. Because one, he could teach my younger quarterback. He could be great in Carolina, honestly, if you're going to use him as a backup. Teach Bryce Young the playbook, and if Young struggles, throw him in for a couple games. Obviously, it's not going to happen this year because the Vikings will want Dobbs to play out since Cousins is hurt. But I'm just saying in the future, depending on what happens with Kurt and all that. But, I mean, the Vikings can keep him, too, if they get rid of Kurt, and I'd be totally fine with that because, like I said, I think that this is a guy who you want to be on your team, and you just want to root for him.
Yeah.
And every opportunity he's been given this year, even with a really bad team in Arizona, I felt like that he's played really, really well.
I think we could finish off with the Dolphins and the Chiefs game.
Yeah.
So Tyreek Hill, for his standards, had a stinker game, 8 receptions, 62 yards. This is not a stinker for a lot of wide receivers, but for him, not too hot.
I mean, the thing about this game that was really interesting, the Chiefs got off to a really hot start. And I know that they only scored 2 offensive touchdowns, and I had that crazy pick 6. But it felt like that the Dolphins just struggled to gain their footing. And then once they did, the Chiefs did nothing.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like a weird game because both these teams have such high-powered offenses. I was expecting one of them to get it together and just run away with the game, and it just didn't happen that way.
Yeah, right.
And it could be the fact that they're playing in Germany, which is even an hour ahead of London. So you're playing on like a really, really weird scheduling time-wise, and then Chiefs have to travel, again, they're Central Time, so it's all very different. But I do think that, to me, it showed that the Dolphins and Chiefs are pretty even with each other. And if you're playing a playoff game back in the States, I think it's going to be really, really competitive.
Agreed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you some stats here, too. Dolphins led the time of possession battle. They outgained the Chiefs' total yardage. More passing yards, more rushing yards, more first downs, less penalties, same amount of turnovers, more sacks. Like, if you just read that, you would say the Dolphins won the game. But the Dolphins, again, it's about squandering opportunities. And I feel like the Chiefs' defense didn't necessarily play great, but they were opportunistic. And they made the plays when they needed to. And, like, that was a great play by Trent McDuffie to strip Tyreek Hill of the ball. No, I'm not sure if that should have been ruled a fumble. I don't know how you guys felt on that. It just seemed weird to me, or like he was moving backwards. I feel like, how is that necessarily making a catch? And like, it felt like the guy was on him the whole time, on the ball the whole time.
Yeah, it was like a 50-50 ball. I would have ruled it as an incompletion, I guess, but like, I'm not mad it was a fumble.
Because, I would have ruled it incomplete, but I guess like the ruling on the field was the fumble. Like, it's one of those you can't overturn. So I'm not really mad at it. I'm not saying anything. It doesn't really matter because wasn't it the play before that or something like that? Or no, I'm sorry, no, because that was in the second quarter. It was in the fourth quarter when Tua Tagovailoa underthrew his receiver by a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was a miscommunication or what, but that's just a play that can't happen, especially when the guy's wide open. Like, you can't squander an opportunity like that.
Yeah. I just think this is like a different Chiefs team than we're used to. Like, they're not going to like stuff the stat sheet anymore because they don't really have like the same weapons that they do at receiver anymore. They're going to win in sneaky ways. Like you said, all those stats pointed towards the Dolphins, but they still came up with a way to win.
Yeah, right.
And like, you're just not going to see like a receiver like absolutely shred a secondary.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I feel like the Chiefs and Eagles are winning in very similar ways. Like, I'm just going to look at, the Eagles did win the time of possession battle, but Dallas had 406 total yards to the Eagles 292, 300 passing yards to Eagles 183. Eagles had 109 to their 73 rushing yards. but Dallas had more first downs, same amount of penalties.
Yeah.
Dallas had more sacks. Like, if you read that, you'd think Dallas won a tight game, but it was the other way because Eagle, in the plays that needed to be made for the game to change, the Eagles made those plays.
Yeah.
And Dallas squandered a couple opportunities.
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting storylines this year is how good the Ravens' offenses look compared to a lot of these other high-powered teams. Because, I mean, they've now 3 weeks in a row scored over 30 points. It's not like they've been playing bad defenses either.
No,
like Arizona's defense is, like Arizona's defense isn't great, but it's also not. They haven't let up that many points. Seattle's defense letting up 37 is crazy. The Lions' defense letting up 38, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, sort of, I would say, if I'm looking at an AFC team right now, if I'm the Chiefs, especially the Chiefs, because their offense just hasn't looked good, and now I have to go up against this high-powered team, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I am too.
And they're hot, too. And like you were saying, like, I know their defense let up 24 last week to the Cardinals, but I feel like letting up 6 to the Lions and 3 to the Seahawks says more than letting up 24 to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Like, that's very impressive.
They were definitely undervaluing like the Cardinals as an opponent that week.
Yeah, right. And now that CJ Stroud has blown up too, they let up 9 points to him week 1. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very. And the other thing too is that they let up 17 to Arizona in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, right.
In the first 3 quarters, they allowed 7 points. So, and at that point, they were up 21-7 going into the fourth. So I think it was just, they were like, okay, we're running away from this team, and they let them get back in it.
Yeah.
But again, I think sometimes you need a game like that, in my opinion. Because then you'll know that, like, if it's this bad an opponent, a good opponent could do that too. So I think when they're playing the Chiefs or the Dolphins in the playoffs, this game will come back into memory for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, I do want to finish off with the CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
So he's looking sensational. He's running away with Offensive Rookie of the Year right now. And I saw this stat from Ghetto Gronk. He already has more passing touchdowns than Kenny Pickett in 13 less games, which is insane.
Yeah.
To think about. Aiden, you called it.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Good pick, dude, because I don't even think you predicted this.
No, not even. I mean, I thought that he was going to win like a good shot at Rookie of the Year, but to throw 5 touchdowns, only threw 2 picks to this.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is that, look, I know the Texans had decent wide receivers, but it's not like that he has like a great number 1.
No.
So the fact that he's putting up numbers like this, I did not see this coming.
Yeah, no. Keep going.
Yeah, but it's awesome to see. And I think that there's a good shot that the Texans can make it as a wild card team.
Oh yeah.
That was not even in consideration for me at the beginning of the year. But I mean, there's a lot of good teams in the AFC. I don't think the Steelers are hanging around much longer.
No.
They're 5-3 right now. They have the 5th spot. I think the Browns have a much better defense. The Bengals are finally looking better. I can see the Texans taking that 7th spot.
Yeah.
And if that happens with a first-year head coach, rookie quarterback, really young wide receivers in defense, that's a hell of a turnaround in 1 year for the Texans.
Yeah, agreed. And like to build on your comment about his weapons, like when you can get Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, 6 and 10 catches respectively, like that's insane. And they're all getting touchdowns too. And then when you were saying about them making the wild card, I could totally see it. 4-4 right now, and then you're looking at their schedule. They play Arizona. They play Jacksonville, who I know they killed. I think it'll be closer, but that's a game you can win. They play Denver. They can win. They play New York Jets. They can win. They get the Titans twice. Indianapolis. These are all winnable games.
Winnable games.
Yeah.
What I'm interested to see, it's a young team.
Yeah.
And young teams sometimes fall apart down the stretches because they're not used to winning, or they think that because they're 4-4 now and they weren't have those expectations that they'll just run through the schedule, and then they realize they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is that CJ Stroud, and again, he is playing great, and I'm not expecting him to like totally fall apart, but he hasn't really faced that much adversity. What happens when he throws 3 interceptions in a game?
Yeah.
What happens when the offense starts to become a little bit more stagnant, or the defense starts letting up points late in the fourth quarter when you have a big lead?
Yeah.
So I want to see those types of games because, like, they lost a close Falcons game. The Panthers game was just weird. So these had a couple of those games, but I want to see it when they actually have a shot of making a playoff spot, which they legitimately have now.
Yeah.
And again, with some of those early losses, I don't think that was really the expectation. But now that it should be the expectation.
Yeah.
Oh, we could wrap up with the NBA. I know you guys want to talk about Embiid and get your hopes up again.
We got to talk about the Harden trade because that happened the day after the episode.
Yeah,
actually,
per usual.
I wanted to say too. That day I made 2 predictions. I said the Sixers would trade Harden for depth, and then it happened that night. And then I also said they should. The Raiders should fire Josh McDaniels, and they did it that night.
I don't think either of those are hot takes, but the timing is good. The timing is good.
But yeah, no, Embiid putting up 48, 17 or whatever, like it's insane. 48, 11, and 6. Again, the thing that is popping out to me right now is the assist numbers and the fact that the offense just looks fluid, and it's not like they're not just scoring because Joel Embiid isolated on the center and dominated him. They're scoring because guys are cutting and moving and the ball is being spread around, and it's more of the system now than it was ever. I mean, under Brett Brown, under Glenn Rivers, anyone. I mean, it's more the system now than ever, which I am encouraged by. Now, I still have to see it over an 82 game stretch. So
I'm unmoved until I see it in the postseason.
I'm moved right now because guys are playing well. So I like what I'm seeing. Like you're gonna get stinkers like you did from Oubre because Oubre had 3 points, but like those things are gonna happen. So how are you gonna handle that?
I think that was only because Embiid scored.
Right. It gets
Well, so Embiid scored that. Maxey still had 22, shot really well. Anthony Melt was 4 or 5 from 3.
Yeah.
So and the other thing too is that the bench played really well.
Yeah, let's give the roses to Batum. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so the thing is that for the first time in a while, it feels like that if a guy is to have an off night, someone else will pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Or 3 guys will pick up the slack. Right. And that just hasn't been the case with the Sixers. It's really been like when they had Ben Simmons and Embiid. If one of those 2 guys struggled, the team was done. Yeah. Harden and Embiid. If one of those 2 guys struggled, forget it. Now it feels like, and again, Embiid's been playing great, but it feels like even if he were to have an off night, like Maxey had an off night a couple nights ago, and they still won that game against, I forget who they played in that game, but they still were able to come away with a win. It was the Raptors game. I think Maxey really struggled in. But or the Suns won. And whichever one it was, Maxey still, it was the Suns. Maxey just did not look very good, and the team still won because Oubre put up like 25.
Yeah.
And if that's what's happening with this team, that's a really, really good sign.
Yeah.
I'm going to say for the Celtics game. I think that's going to be one of the more telling games of the season.
Yeah.
Which team is going to be more put together? I mean, again, it's really early in the season, so you don't know. But the fact that the only loss this season so far was by 1 point to the Bucks on opening night. I'm not trying to hype people up because I understand why people are a little bit hesitant to get on the bus right now. But I'm just saying, watch this team because it's already looking different. And I think a lot of that has to do with Nick Nurse's coaching style and the system that he has in place, like you said.
Yeah, okay, you know what? I'll take it back. Let's get 20 games into the season. I need to see the team have actual adversity before I could say things really changed.
Yeah.
It's way too early.
I want to say, too, the Celtics had a really big hiccup last night, too. And I feel like the Sixers haven't looked like that this year. And if you're asking, because both teams are 5-1 now, if you're asking me what team has looked better right now, I would say the Sixers, because in my opinion, they have been competitive in every single game, and they haven't played down to any opponent. They've played up to all of their opponents.
Yeah.
And they've destroyed their weaker opponents. And the Celtics just had a stinker last night where they played down to a bad Timberwolves team.
Yeah.
So, again, this is just a 6-game sample size, so it doesn't mean anything because they literally play tomorrow night, so it could literally change in a night.
Yeah. And I mean, that could be what has been really interesting to see, though, is the Bucks struggle out of the gate.
Yeah, right.
And they are playing better now, but it's still and they're 4-2 now, so they have looked better, but still some of their games just losing by as much as they did to the Raptors, only beating the Knicks by 5, only beating the Nets by 4. Yeah. They haven't been as dominant as I assume they would be. And again, they're 6 games in. A lot can change.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sixers were 12-12 last year and then just ran away with third spot, but still, they need to look a little bit more fluid to me. In the West, the Nuggets 7-1, they haven't fallen off at all.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good sign for them. I just want to quickly touch on Wembanyama. We talked about him coming in. He's as much of a unicorn as he is. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think people had high expectations for him, but he's lived up to those expectations. That's really hard to do for a guy that's never played basketball in the United States before and to play as well as he had in some of his games. It's just crazy to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say. He's leading the team in points, rebounds, steals, and blocks.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Uh-huh.
We did mention the Harden trade. I do want to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to say it. That team is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work.
Like, he can't be doing that.
Like, you can't say you're the system and then drop 9 points the next game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the other thing, too, is that, like you said, this is not going to work. When I looked at how they played against the Knicks, and again, the Knicks aren't awful, but if you have as much talent as the Clippers supposedly have, that should be a winnable game.
Yeah.
I know, to me, the issue with this trade is that the Clippers decided they're going to go all in with their starters and gave up a lot of bench pieces. PJ Tucker is still an above average defender. What is he, 39 now?
He's a walking 0-point performance.
But doesn't make up for losing Batum and Covington, who are 2 stretch wing.
Yeah.
And Tucker's not going to be able to cover that for you on your bench.
Right.
And then go through the rest of the guys. Like, they've got Plumlee at center, which is just, again, not like he's a defensive center. You've got Powell, who's a shooting guard, and then a backup power or point guard. There's not really a stretch wing here that I'm relying on to score points off the bench. So if someone gets hurt, which with this older team that they have between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who are just liabilities injury-wise, if one of those guys go down or multiple guys go down, their team's done.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they really thought that through or why you would make a trade like that. Look, I'm just saying, like, obviously I like the Sixers. I'm happy they made the trade. It worked out really well for them. But if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm shaking my head at this one.
Yeah, I am too. Like, I don't know what the trend is with, like, going all in on starters and just, like, depleting your bench. Like, you saw it didn't work with Brooklyn. I don't think it's going to work for the Suns, and I don't think it's going to work for the Clippers. Like,
agreed.
All the past champions that I could think of, Nuggets had a great bench.
Warriors always had a great bench.
Yeah, Warriors always had a great bench. Lakers had a good bench that year.
Yeah.
Bucks, Raptors that one year. Yeah. Like, every team had a good bench.
Even look at the teams that just made it to the championship, too. They always have good depth, too. And
the Celtics always have one of the deepest teams in the entire league.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work either. And I think you hit it on the nail. I don't think there's much more to add to it. Like, if you don't have depth in this league, you're not going to win. And it's like what I was saying about the Nuggets this year, what they look like an AAU team. It's like it's not all talent. Like, they just play extremely well together, and everyone's play elevates.
Yeah,
where you're playing really great basketball, and it's like you don't even look at how good a player is. Like, they are playing well in the system, and the system is doing amazing.
Yeah, no, that's what I was arguing with Brennan yesterday. Like, Nikola Jokic has no all-star teammates, but everyone confuses Jamal Murray with an all-star teammate because of how he plays in the postseason.
Well, I think he is an all-star level player.
I don't think in the West. I think he is. I think
he is. I think if you average 25 as a guard in the NBA, you're all-star level.
Yeah.
Determined.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if you don't make it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, there are other guys with teams that had way more help and, like, actual all-stars.
No, for sure. Jokic's ring reminds me of Nowitzki's ring, not just because they're white big men. It's the team, the team feel.
Yeah. What's also interesting about the Nuggets is the fact that Murray didn't even play last night, and they still crushed the Pelicans with Reggie Jackson as their point guard.
Yeah.
And that's like a scary thing to realize that, like, you could be missing one of your top guys, but we just have this guy that will casually come off the bench for us, get 7 points, 4 assists, a rebound, I think a couple steals as well.
Yeah.
And, like, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really scary thing that teams in the West have to worry about. Braun 6 points, Strother 21. When you can get a guy off the bench that's scoring 21, a couple guys scoring 6, 3 or 4 here or there, that's scary.
Yeah.
Really, really scary.
Do you guys have anything else?
No, that's all for me. Oh, yeah, actually, I have one thing to say. So I just finalist for People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive.
I saw that.
Timothée Chalamet, Usher, Jamie Foxx, Pedro Pascal, Lenny Kravitz, and Philadelphia Eagles Jason Kelce. I'm not even kidding. No, wow. I'm not kidding.
I love it.
Yeah, that's it. And also college basketball starting this week.
Yes.
Michigan State got upset.
I thought you were going to say Josh Giddey when you brought up Chalamet.
No. Yeah, no, he does look like Giddey.
Yeah. I don't know why Michigan State was ranked 4th going into that game against Colorado. I thought that they were too overranked.
JMU. Michigan State.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, LSU was Colorado, the women's side.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, that's right. I was mixing up too. So, LSU lost to Colorado, and then James Madison beat Michigan State for the men's. Yeah. Again, Michigan State still way too overranked for me. Yeah. Because it happens every year. Totally we'll definitely get more into college basketball as it wraps or gets more into the season, but very happy to have it back.
Yeah, for college basketball, I don't really want to start making like labels on teams until after until the beginning of conference play. Really, once I see your non-conference play wrap up,
right? Yeah. Pretty much.
It's still fun to talk about. Upsets are cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much between Christmas and New Year's is when you can start paying a little bit more attention because that's when conference play starts too. Start up.
Yeah, and just one more thing, everyone's favorite time of the year for college basketball is obviously March, and love it, but this is my favorite. The
non-conference stuff is awesome.
Yeah, the tournaments, I love all of that stuff. So
yeah, I saw for the women's basketball basketball that LSU lost to Colorado, and everyone's saying that was the Dion effect. And I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, that's actually funny.
Yeah.
I saw...
Colorado is Berkeley, though. They beat Stanford 2 years ago when Stanford was number 1.
Yeah.
So they're known for knocking off really good teams in women's basketball.
Yeah. I'm excited for... I like the women's college basketball. I like South Carolina because of Dawn Staley.
Yeah,
she's always wearing the Eagles gear on the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
I have to root for her team.
Yeah,
but she has a guard this year who is crazy. Made an insane move the other day that went viral.
I'm excited to hopefully finally see Paige Brickus versus Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm waiting for. Crazy matchup. Yeah. I'm ready for Caitlin Clark this year again too.
Yeah. I just want to watch LSU for Haley Van Lith.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was sad when they lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She wasn't on the team last year. Oh, yeah. She just transferred.
Yeah, transferred, yeah. All right, I think we'll leave it there. Yeah. We'll see you next week.